You are watching college basketball on the ACC Network Extra. College basketball season has finally arrived after months of anticipation. We're here on Tobacco Road in Raleigh, North Carolina in the PNC Arena. Alongside Chris Corciani, my name is Andrew Sanders. Chris, as we look at Mount St. Mary's, finished second in the NEC last year, had a great season, but this is an entirely new team.
First-year coach Dan Engelstad has a young team with many new faces. Of the top 8 players from last year's team, only 1 returns.
On the other side for NC State, very similarly, a team coming off a great year, finished tied for 3rd in the ACC. They bring back 3 starters, but that's it.
Yeah, and of those 3, only 2 are going to be out there with the injury to Braxton Beverly, but the 2 they have, Torin Dorn and Markel Johnson, are special.
There's the second-year head coach of the Wolfpack, Kevin Keats. What a job he did in year number 1.
Kevin Keats has done a great job of bringing excitement back to the program. 11 ACC wins in his first year. The Wolfpack is going to be fun to watch.
And the 2018-2019 college basketball season is underway here in Raleigh. The Mountaineers start off with the basketball, and it's in the hands of Vado Morse. Freshman guard runs into some pressure, finds an outlet. This is Jalen Gibbs, little pull-up off the side of the backboard. And the rebound to Devin Daniels of NC State. This is a Wolfpack team that is new, but is not necessarily inexperienced. You look out on the floor, Daniels, Wyatt Walker, CJ Bryce, all of them transfers that have gotten some reps.
Yeah, they've all played good minutes in college basketball. It's just they haven't played together, and that's going to be a challenge early in the season, is meshing this group as one unit.
C.J. Bryce scores his first points in an NC State uniform. He led UNC Wilmington as NC State picks up a steal. It's Bryce.
Yeah,
he led UNC Wilmington almost 18 points a couple years ago.
He's a great scorer, slasher, can shoot the ball, but really likes to get to the basket and can score the ball.
Bryce maybe hit on the arm or just delayed enough. Shot up and no good by KJ Scott, the lone upperclassman. He's actually a grad transfer from Texas Southern. Everyone else on this Mount St. Mary's team is an underclassman.
It's funny, early in the game you see NC State, little jitters, missing a few shots, taking a couple bad ones. You know, once they settle down, they should be in good shape.
Scott dishes it off, and we've got an offensive foul. Wyatt Walker was posted up in the lane.
That's what Walker does. He does all the little things, and talking to their coaches, they say he's like a 40-year-old playing in a YMCA pickup league. Just does all the right things. There you see him giving up his body, taking the charge.
Walker, grad student from Jacksonville, spent 3 years at Samford. He actually has 2 years to play here at NC State despite being a grad transfer because he played in just a couple of games last year before getting a medical red shirt. As Torin Dorn's 3 rattles out. The rebound to Gibbs.
NC State's playing with the small lineup with 4 guards and a big, and you're going to see that a lot this year.
Jalen Gibbs able to score oversized. The sophomore from Waldorf, Maryland, had 23 points in their exhibition win over Hood College.
Yeah, he's their #1 scorer that really can put it in the basket. On that last possession, Coach Keats wasn't happy with the defensive effort.
Mount St. Mary's looking to push the ball. This is Nana Opoku, and he had it knocked away. Torin Dorn comes flying in.
You know, that's the way Mount St. Mary's wants to play. They want to get up and down, and NC State does as well, but NC State not doing a great job getting back on defense.
Yeah, as we were looking at the tail of the tape on this one and starting to do some scouting, both of these teams want to play very similarly. The pace, the tempo of this ball game should be high. Morse, I don't know if he called glass, but that'll work. Tough shot.
Got to call that one. I'm not so sure he meant to bank it off the glass, but he did, and they take their lead.
So he scores his first college points. Markel Johnson with an answer the other way to tie it at 4.
Tell you, Markel Johnson's going to have a huge year this year. You know, last year he just blossomed, did a great job, was one of the top point guards in the conference, and this year I think he has the ability to be one of the best in the country.
Yeah, the junior maybe looking to score a little bit more this year, was more of a distributor last year.
Yeah, there you see NC State with great pressure defense. They're getting in the passing lanes, making it tough for Mount St. Mary's.
Gibbs goes up strong, and Daniels also goes up strong.
You know, that's the question mark I have for NC State. Are they going to be able to play this small lineup and still be able to rebound with efficiency? They've got to have all 5 guys going to the glass because they just don't have your typical forwards, power forward, and center. They play small.
First substitution for Kevin Keats as Devin Daniels checks out, and another transfer comes in. Blake Harris, who moved over from Missouri in January of last year, but is eligible immediately. Wyatt Walker forces a tough shot.
It was good, sound defense. Wyatt Walker didn't foul and just played sound defense.
Harris's first touch. Front iron, and off it's a board. Torin Dorn takes the bump and finishes. Foul goes against Malik Jefferson. So that'll take us to our first media timeout, 6-4 NC State. 6-4 NC State leads here at the first media timeout. Hello everybody, we welcome you courtside here in the PNC Arena. My name is Andrew Sanders, joined by Chris Corciani. Well, 4 minutes in the books. These guys have maybe gotten the jitters out a little bit here. Chris, what's that like the night before opening night?
You know, a lot of these guys aren't sleeping. They've worked all year so hard for this moment, and now they're out there. They're like caged animals. They want to be let loose, and you see them a little rusty early on, but that won't last long.
Get a look at the first-year head coach of Mount St. Mary's, Dan Engelstad, who spent the previous 5 years as the head coach at Southern Vermont College, had been an assistant at the Mount a couple of years ago, and are now Pitt assistant Milan Brown, who's assisting Jeff Capel III in the ACC.
Right, and Dan was a great college basketball player at the Division III level at St. Mary's.
Markel Johnson with a steal and the flush.
That's the way NC State wants to play. They want to get in the passing lanes, and they want their defense to create offense.
Another block for the Wolfpack. It's newly into the ballgame, DJ Funderburk, the junior college transfer, as Dorn saves it under his own basket.
Ooh.
And I know you never like to see that. That's a no-no.
No, when the ball's going out of bounds underneath, you want to try to throw it high enough in the air, and you don't throw it back by the basket. But that's the kind of thing that, you know, the coaches will watch on video and certainly let the players know.
It is an effort play by Dorn, which I guess you can live with a little more.
Oh, absolutely. When guys are playing hard, and, you know, good things happen when you play hard. And this team, you're going to see them play hard. That's what they did last year. That's what Kevin Keats brings. I mean, these guys practice hard, and they're going to play hard.
So with that block by DJ Funderburk, NC State now already with 3 in the early going. We've got a stoppage here.
I think it was something to do with the shot clock, what they were going to.
Changed it from 30 to 28 seconds. Scott, size mismatch with Johnson on him. Drives down the lane, dishes, Jefferson, power dribble, in comes Funderburk again. My goodness, the 6'10 redshirt sophomore, you can see why he was ranked as highly as the #1 junior college recruit in the country.
Here you see Funderburk had to come over to give help, but then comes back for the block. He's capable of doing so many things. He's the kind of player that can guard the point guard, but also can guard the 5. Not many players can guard 5 positions.
And another steal for the Pack as C.J. Bryce picks the pocket of Jefferson, racing the other way, a little spin move, and scores.
Bryce is going to be fun to watch. Great on the defensive end and can score as well.
And Funderburk wanted that one. Count the basket for Jalen Gibbs.
I tell you, Coach Keats not happy with transition defense after the basket by Bryce. Everybody was doing the home run trot, getting back on defense, and Coach Keats didn't like that.
I tell you what, I love that mentality from Mount St. Mary's, though. There's been a few blocks, and Gibbs got the ball. We told you that they wanted to run, put his head down, went and challenged Funderburk.
Yeah, that's the way Coach Engelstad wants to play, up and down. It's a lot harder in a game like this to play exactly the way Mount St. Mary's wants to play just because they've got inferior talent out there.
Devin Daniels back into the ball game. Looks for his own offense, and he will go to the free throw line. Foul on Jefferson.
Andrew, that's Devin Daniels' game, is to put the ball down, get to the basket. He creates a lot of fouls. You'll see him at the foul line a lot this year. Very unorthodox. He gets in the lane, shoots floaters off the wrong foot. But I'll tell you, the guy can really score the ball.
That's the second foul on Malik Jefferson. And Nana Opoku will come back in. Daniels spent his freshman season at Utah where he made 26 starts and averaged just a hair under 10 points a game in over 20 minutes per game. So he was very productive as a freshman in the Pac-12.
And one of his teammates was Kyle Kuzma, the Los Angeles Laker second-year player.
Yeah, you might recognize that name. Gibbs driving on Jericole Helms, one of the freshmen for NC State. And away come the Wolfpack. Harris almost turned it over. Funderburk manages to keep his balance. Daniels a little out of control, and he's whistled for it. An offensive foul.
It was a good call. He a little out of control, put his head down, but that's when you got to be a little more under control and pull up and shoot that floater or the short mid-range shot.
Credit Damian Chong-Kui for standing in there. 5'8" freshman guard from Baltimore, Maryland.
Well, I can tell you it's not fun standing in there when a guy's coming at you full speed, especially when he's got the size of Devin Daniels well put together.
Yeah, Devin Daniels, at least on the roster, has 8 or 9 inches on Damian Chong-Kui.
Oh, yeah.
But he hung tough. The diminutive point guard with the ball now being hounded by Blake Harris. Gibbs sealed off well by Helms. 7 to shoot. Gibbs left open on the wing.
Ooh, might have got away with the walk there.
Eric Lockett was fouled. Another one of these transfers for NC State, a grad transfer. Started his career at George Mason, then went to Chipola College, then played at FIU for 2 seasons. Almost 15 points a game last year.
FIU from Miami, Florida. That's where I'm from. I'm well aware of that school. But he's another one of those guys, very strong defensively, can score. NC State's got so many interchangeable parts. You know, they got guys that can play multiple positions, and that's exactly the way Coach Keats wanted to recruit.
Good ball movement for NC State, but Helms leaves it short.
Good look by Funderburk, but Helms couldn't finish.
Martin Polson puts the ball on the deck, picks up his dribble, and the 3 is banked in by Omar Habwe. It's a couple of bank shots for the Mount.
They must work on that in practice. Here you see Mount St. Mary's sitting back in a 2-3 zone, and NC State's going to have to knock down some outside shots here.
Well, that 3 by Habwe is the first 3-pointer of the ball game, and that's one thing this game might not feature a lot of, 3-point shooting. Daniels, tough shot, fading over his right shoulder. And the ball saved by Helms to Lockett, poked away. Here comes Habwe. And a foul on Funderburk as he clotheslines James West.
So you give Coach Engelstad credit for getting out of the man-to-man and switching up and catching NC State. Kind of surprised that they went zone. You can see Coach Keats telling the guys, you know, let's get in our zone offense. Took them too long to get into it on that offensive possession.
James West, one of the few players that was at the Mount last year. He played in 9 games. That averaged just over 5 minutes per game.
You know, Mount St. Mary's has to be happy being down 2 points right around the 12-minute mark. You know, a lot of times they just want to stick around and stay in the game and see what happens in the second half, where NC State, on the other hand, they wanted to try to knock them out early, and they haven't done that.
Free throw is good, cuts it to a 1-point lead.
They stay in that 2-3 zone, matching up. You know, that's one of NC State's weaknesses, especially with Braxton Beverly out. They don't have a pure shooter from outside.
And Coach Keats says Beverly is their best three-point shooter.
You know, they're all capable shooters, but they don't have that Scott Wood type shooter that doesn't miss.
Mount St. Mary's with a chance to take the lead on this possession. As West finds Chong Kui. Paulson an offensive rebound, and they'll recycle.
It looked like there was 3 white NC State shirts, but they couldn't come up with it.
West draws the contact. He'll go to the line. Aggressive play from James West, the sophomore from Woodbridge, Virginia.
Here you see Markell getting in the passing lane, and the little guy going down and flushing it down with authority.
Back here in Raleigh with Chris Corciani, my name is Andrew Sanders. All right, Chris, so far through 8 minutes and change, what have you seen from the Wolfpack, both the good and the bad?
Well, I think the good is they're playing with great energy. They're getting after it the way that Coach Keats wants them to play. They've got 4 blocks. They've got a couple steals. That's the positive. The negative is they've got to be able to contain the ball handler from getting to the basket. This team, if they're going to be successful, especially in the ACC, they're going to have to be a great half-court defensive team where they keep the ball handler in front of them. And early on, I know that's something Coach Keats hasn't been pleased with.
That's the good, the bad. Here's the ugly. They've allowed 7 offensive rebounds to Mount St. Mary's so far. That was something that Coach Keats stressed in the press conference, that's one thing he didn't like about the win over Chowan in the exhibition.
Well, you know, when they play with that small lineup, that's always going to be something to watch, is how are they going to be able to handle the defensive board. So I said the 2 weaknesses that I see in the practices I've gone to is, are they going to be a good outside shooting three-point team, and are they going to be able to rebound defensively?
Pretty move from Devin Daniels as the floater drops.
You know, that's a floater off the wrong foot, and that's how unorthodox he is. He's a real tough player to guard because he is so different.
You can't anticipate what he's going to do.
Yeah, he just does something different. He's one of these guys that in a horse game would be special.
Vado Morse, same shot as Daniels, maybe a little further out, and can't knock it down. Just a 2-point ball game.
They're staying in that 1-2-2 matchup zone, and it's giving NC State some trouble, but not on that possession.
Good look from Markell Johnson, but the shot from Dorn was blocked. Another look inside from Johnson, and this time Dorn scores it.
I tell you, Johnson's as good as any point guard in the ACC. I want to see him a little more offensive-minded and not always looking for the pass, because I think he can really be one of NC State's top scorers, and that's when NC State plays at its best.
Dribble it off of his heel, and we'll have a jump ball. Possession arrow favors NC State as West gets tangled up with Walker.
Markell just going a little fast there. There you see the nice kick-out pass that really created that, and Walker should get the hockey assist on that.
Imagine how many you would have had if they had secondary assist.
I'll tell you, I joke with people.
Like in hockey.
I said the guy sitting right down there, Howard Baum, the statistician, used to keep assists. And I ended up with over 1,000 in my career, but I probably really only had about 500. But Howard would give me assists. I'd throw it to Rodney Monroe. He'd take 5 or 6 dribbles. He'd give me an assist. So every time I see him, I love him. I hug him and kiss him and tell him thank you.
Opoku lost the handle. This is Daniels with Gibbs all over him. Got a deflection. And someone touched the basketball with their foot on the end line. I think it was Dorn.
Yeah, Devin was pounding that a little bit too much. He got himself in the corner. Good defensive play by Mount St. Mary's. But NC State seems like they're rushing a little bit. You saw a possession or two ago, Markell dribbled off his foot, and there Devin kind of dribbled in the corner and into no man's land.
Do you attribute that to opening night? Bright lights.
Yeah, the lights are on for the first time. It just takes a while. You know, this team, again, we've talked about it, a lot of new players. It's going to take some time to mesh, know where one another is on the court, and that doesn't happen overnight.
Now 6 turnovers forced by the Wolfpack as Mount St. Mary's is in over a 2.5-minute drought. Markel Johnson has been working on his three-point shot. Gibbs might have a run out here. And Bryce hit him on the top of the head. He'll go to the free throw line. First foul on C.J. Bryce.
I tell you, it was a good run out there for Mount St. Mary's. You know, they want to get long rebounds and steals and go down and score. It's so hard. People don't realize when a team is dug in playing half-court defense, it's hard to score. If you can score on a break or a loose ball and it's a 4-on-3 break, so much easier to put points on the board instead of going up against 5 set up in defense.
So that free throw for Gibbs breaks a 6-0 run for the Wolfpack. Gibbs now with 6 points. He's a transfer from Drake, but played sparingly. He's been their leading scorer so far. They expect a big contribution out of him this year. 12 to shoot for NC State. Dorn. A mid-range shot is usually where he lives. Funderburk with the offensive board and the stick back is fouled.
Well, he's a very skilled player and can shoot the ball, can rebound. The one thing he needs to do, he's got to put on some weight. That was a perfect example there. He got bumped. In the years to come, puts on a little weight, gets a little stronger, he'll be able to finish that.
Well, despite his size at 6'10", he's a good shooter. He made 19 threes last year at Northwest Florida State at junior college. He shot about 75% from the line.
He's a good shooter, good passer, can put the ball, can do so many things. He's very versatile, and the coaches say that he can guard any position on the court, which is really special.
He affected that shot by Jalen Gibbs. Bryce on the deck, into the paint. Kick out 3 to Dorn. And nothing dropping. Neither team really shooting particularly well right now. The Mount just 22%. NC State 0 for 4 on three-pointers.
Yeah, that nice penetration by CJ kicking it to Torin Dorn, but wasn't able to knock down the shot.
Scott comes up short. A little sloppy here in the first half for both teams. Speaking of, a run out. Vado Morse.
Yeah, a little uncharacteristic. Markel, struggling with ball, but the worst part about that turnover is ends up leading to an easy bucket at the other end.
And Blake Harris rises up off the bench, comes over to the scorer's table. Easy find, Walker to Funderburk.
I tell you, Walker doesn't look to score. He catches it. He's got pass first on his mind, but he's a great distributor, and you see him hit Funderburk for the easy deuce.
He had 5 helpers in the exhibition against Chiwan. He already has 2 assists tonight. Tough finish. Vado Morse all the way to the rim.
Oh, Morris just took it in there and flipped it up. What a great shot. Lucky NC State didn't get called for a foul on that as well.
And finally, the Wolfpack connects from behind the arc. Now 1 for 5, and Torin Dorn has 10 points as Mount St. Mary's calls timeout. Back here in the PNC Arena, NC State leads at 24-18. Mount St. Mary's hanging in there despite, this is the inexperience we were talking about earlier, Chris. They returned just 103 points. That's career points in a Mount uniform.
It's an amazing number to really think about that. They've got all new players, new faces, but they're hanging in there, playing hard, and they've got to be pleased to be only down 6.
Yeah, only down 6. What have you seen from them so far? What have you liked? What do you want to see improve?
I'll tell you, Morse and Gibbs really off to a good start with 12 points. They're not backing down from NC State, going right at them.
And the triple is canned by Morse. He's got 9 points now.
Yeah, they're hanging right there with NC State down 3. They've had good success with this matchup zone. It's given NC State some problems.
They're going to call a foul before Funderburk put it back in. So yeah, Harris will go to the line.
They need to be a little more patient, move the ball, get some dribble penetration, kick out. You know, that was just a straight line drive. That was a tough shot, and luckily Blake Harris got fouled on it.
Nana Poku picks up his first. So Morse leading the way for the Mount with 9 points. Blake Harris of NC State, that's his first Wolfpack point. Those are two guys that are, every time they score tonight, they're going to be setting a new career high. We're going to see a lot of new career highs for both of these teams tonight.
Yeah, Blake Harris, really been impressed with him on the defensive end. In some of the practices I've gone to in the early going, the coaches think he's the best on-ball defender. And you'll see him going up against some of the tougher scoring opponents that the Wolfpack plays this year.
Harris will be, Martin Polson, the moving screen, his first foul. That really is saying something. Best on-ball defender when you've got a guy like Markel Johnson on the team who was 5th in the ACC, almost 2 steals a game last year.
Markel's got great active hands, moves his feet extremely well. But that needs to be the strength of this Wolfpack team. They've got, 4 or 5 guys that really can lock players up. And for them to have success, they're going to have to be a good defensive team.
Probably going to see a lot of zone this year. Right before the break, Torin Dorn knocked down the Pack's first 3. Daniels will heave it up, misses everything, but there's Walker. And that's an old school move you were talking about. You might see it the Y.
I tell you, I love his game. Does all the little things, does dirty work.
Bryce to Funderburk. And that's what you're talking about, defense into offense and easy buckets.
Exactly. Here you see them pressing. They got a steal last time, and that's the way Coach Keats wants to play. He wants to make it a little crazy out there, and you can see Mount St. Mary's with a quick shot. That's the other thing NC State wants.
Harris lost the handle. And as expected maybe in the first game, it has been a bit sloppy. Scott bowls over Funderburk. That's going to be an offensive foul. Now 9 turnovers for the Mountaineers.
Just a smart play by Funderburk there. He saw the offensive player coming, that he was out of control. He didn't go for the block. He gave up his body, stood in there, and took the charge. Right there he knows he's out of control. He just stands in there, great position. Love a guy that stands in there and gives up his body for the team.
Just 5 minutes left in this first half. The season opener between the Wolfpack and the Mountaineers. Daniels had it punched out of his hands. Ball will stay on this end.
Tell you, the Pack has not looked comfortable against the 2-3. A lot of dribbling, a lot of standing. I know Coach Keats wants more ball movement, more penetration to kick the ball out. Just struggling a bit with this 2-3.
Walker was the undercut. And Coach Engelstad with his hands out. It looked like Wyatt Walker had position.
Tell you, Walker's a tough worker, gets in good position for the offensive rebound. He's the kind of guy that brings his lunch pail to work every day. Nothing special. He's just going to outwork you both on the offensive and defensive end.
Foul was called on the floor, so this will be a one-on-one. And it spins out. Wolfpack has stretched this lead out to 8. Mount St. Mary's trying to reel him back in. Obway hands off to West. Seems like the ball's a little slippery tonight for both teams.
Yeah, it's back-to-back possessions that Mount St. Mary's got called for an illegal screen. But it does seem slippery out there. You know, every time NC State has it, they lose control. And, you know, that happens sometimes with a new basketball. I don't know what they're playing with tonight.
Last 2.5 minutes for the Mount. They have 4 turnovers. Those illegal screens, that was really an emphasis last year, remember?
That's right.
It's carrying over to this season. Players still maybe trying to get used to it a bit. Daniels, dial it up.
He can score in bunches. When he hits a couple, that basket gets real big for him. So look for him to get going.
Abwe finds an outlet in West, just barely beating the 5 count. It's the largest lead for the Wolfpack at 11. Chong Kui. Pretty move, little floater.
Tell you, a good-looking drive right there. Got in, didn't go all the way to the bucket. He kind of stopped short with the little floater.
They asked Damian Chong Kui for a fun fact about him, and he said, I'm a real superhero. And right there, he basically had a cape flying down the lane with that floater.
I tell you, he's not a big kid, but he's got a big heart.
Exactly. Media timeout here in Raleigh. 9-point lead for the Wolfpack. The 17th ranked Wolfpack women open up their season tomorrow night in Reynolds Coliseum against the Belmont Bruins. First tip is 7 o'clock right here on the ACC Network Extra. Hey, Reynolds Coliseum, that's my partner's old stomping grounds.
Oh, the greatest place on earth. Just great environment, the fans, old, had a smell to it. It's nothing like Reynolds Coliseum.
Loose basketball pulled in by Vado Morse. Had a pretty good game so far. This is the 4th all-time meeting between NC State and Mount St. Mary's. Last meeting back in 2006.
Tell you, historically, Mount St. Mary's has had a good program. Wow, a big 3 there.
Vado Morse, cold-blooded. He leads all scorers now with 12 points. He's knocked down a couple of triples. And the freshman, he's balling out on his opening night.
He is coming to play. He is not backing down, not scared at all.
You know, it started with that bank shot on an angle. Ever since then, everything else has been cash.
Yeah, there, Lockett with a nice pull-up shot, got his first bucket of this season. But I was talking about Mount St. Mary's. They have a legendary coach in Jim Phelan, who I actually, when I was at NC State, he was the coach, and we played Mount St. Mary's. He was there 49 years.
That's incredible.
It's just amazing. Great coach, great person.
And it's interesting you brought that up because I was going to spring that on you a little bit later. The first ever meeting between these two teams, you were on the court for that. I was going to ask you if you remembered that ball game. It was a high-scoring one.
I don't remember a lot of things nowadays, but I do remember playing them because I remember Coach V talking about the legendary coach they had.
Pretty shot by Markel Johnson. 114 to 104 was the final score. You guys were getting up and down the court.
Not a lot of defense there. What a great drive right there. Luckily for NC State, they could have been caught a foul. That could have been an and one.
36-28. Bryce, a step back. And a big rebound by Apoku.
They're the kind of shots that Bryce will hit once he settles down, but that's his game. Kind of goes in, pushes off a bit, and able to create a little bit of space, but they're shots that he can hit.
Did Lockett get a piece? Yes, he did. And who's it last off of? Morse. C.J. Bryce, even though he's a relative newcomer, I know he was here last year, but this is his, because he had to sit out for transfer rules. Even though this is his first time getting on the court, he's somewhat of a leader for this team. A lot of guys said, hey, because he's played with Coach Keats before, they can go to him for advice on little things. Hey, how do I play this? How do I do that? Huge
advantage having played for Coach Keats at Wilmington and then being on the team last year, sitting out. He's a guy that knows Coach Keats' system better than anyone out there.
Pack stretched it out to a 10-point lead. 15 to shoot for Jalen Gibbs. Driving on Daniels. Dribbled off the foot of Habway, and here comes Dorn. Wiped off by Opoku, but there's Bryce with the follow.
This is the way the Pack wants to play, up and down.
Hey, why hold for the last shot? Both these teams want to run, and they do. Jalen Gibbs, count it.
I tell you, Gibbs with a great shot there. One, makes a nice catch on that long ball. Then he goes in, great balance, great strength with the finish.
That's the second foul on C.J. Bryce.
The one thing, when Coach Keats looks at this first half, he's not going to be real pleased with transition defense. You know, they've had 3 or 4 run-outs. When we score, they're running out, and that's something they can't have.
My stats man, Nathan Cook, just told me that Gibbs bucket came 4 seconds after the NC State bucket.
Well, they get up and down, no doubt.
Well, we've got a timeout, NC State here. Maybe time to get out the whiteboard and draw up a play just before the half. NC State 11-1 all time against teams from the NEC, Northeastern Conference, and Mount St. Mary's 1-21 all time against the ACC. But the one was a big one. They beat a ranked Georgia Tech team back in 1995.
It's always tough when these lower mid-major schools, they're always having to go on the road.
Always
and that
tough.
makes it tough. But, you know, those guys are up for the challenge like you see tonight with Mount St. Mary's. They're not backing down. They're going punch for punch against the Pack. You know, a lot of times what you end up seeing is the Pack has much greater depth. In the second half, a lot of times that's when you can wear a team down.
To your point, this is the 30th season opener for Mount St. Mary's since moving to Division I. This is their 28th game opening on the road. So
right?
Only twice have they got to open up at home in the friendly confines of Knott Arena. 2 to shoot, Daniels. And the tip would not have counted had it gone in. 1 half in the books here, the season opener between NC State and Mount St. Mary's. 70 points in the first half, maybe not quite where we thought we'd see the scoring, but if these teams can cut down on some of the sloppiness, we would expect those numbers to go up in the second half.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of easy shots missed, turnovers, little sloppy play, but they're playing at a nice fast pace. Certainly for Coach Keats, that's what he wants. And hopefully we'll see more good play here in the second half.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Chris Corciani and I will be back for halftime after these words. Quite a halftime show here inside PNC Arena. I'm taking some notes for my puppy. Alongside Chris Corciani, my name is Andrew Sanders. Welcome back, everybody. Halftime show here in PNC Arena. Chris, it just feels good to be back here with you broadcasting college basketball again.
It's a great time of the year. Opening night of college hoops. You've got football geared up late in the season. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
It's a great time to be a sports fan. It's a great time to check out some highlights from the first half. Just in case you're just tuning in, 40-30, NC State leading it, but Mount St. Mary's hanging tough the whole way. You see the bank shot by Vado Morse. He was at it all first half with that.
He had a great first half, attacking the basket, knocking in a couple shots off the glass. Good, strong little player.
NC State on the other side, being led in scoring by Torin Dorn. Really no surprise, the redshirt senior, really the elder statesman of this team. He's got 12.
Yeah, he's going to be a great leader, real strong. Here you see Bryce with a nice spin, a little contact, and Daniels knocking down a 3.
Transfers making an impact. Markel Johnson, of course, dishing out assists as he does. Better than anyone in the ACC last season. Here's a look at first half stats. And the field goal percentage, not quite where you'd want it. And three-point shooting, we figured wouldn't be that much of a factor, as it has kind of changed the game here in college basketball. These teams not going to be as reliant upon it.
No, that's not what their strength's going to be. A little sloppy, a lot to improve on. But, you know, again, we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, you know, the first game, everybody's so excited. They can't wait to get out there. You're going to see both teams settle down, be a little more crisp here in the second half. But yeah, a little sloppy first half.
NC State will pleased with those points off turnovers. Mount St. Mary's, they want to ratchet up the pressure here in the second half. We'll be back in a couple of minutes on the ACC Network Extra. And we are back here in the city of Oaks. It's a 10-point lead for the NC State Wolfpack here in the 2018-2019 season opener. Once again with Chris Corciani, my name is Andrew Sanders. Glad to have you with us here at halftime. And Chris, we get a look at the ACC. For my money, year in and year out, it is the best conference for college basketball. Preseason media poll, a lot of people like Duke, no surprise.
Yeah, no surprise. I also want to agree with you, without a doubt, year in and year out, best conference. But yeah, there you see Duke, UVA, UNC, all the regular characters.
Now, Syracuse and Clemson are probably going to be pretty good, but I don't know about a first-place vote. Was that you? Did you vote for Clemson?
No, I like Coach Boeheim and everything, but no, that would not have been my vote.
NC State picked 8th in the preseason poll, which at first glance you say, well, 8th, that's kind of far down. But as good as the ACC is, 8th is pretty much a fringe top 25 team. Considering all the question marks for this team, you have a chance to play your way in the top 25 very quickly.
Without a doubt, being an 8th-place team in the conference is going to get you a tournament bid.
Almost automatically.
The difference between being a 4th place or 10th or 11th is going to be a game or two. So the ACC is going to be very difficult. Every game is going to be important because there's a difference if you're a 4th place team or a 10th place team.
Just look at the strength of the league. I mean, on the other side, you had teams like Miami, Louisville, teams that are perennially good. Here's a look at the teams that are currently in the top 25. Last year's finish, Clemson making that Sweet 16, that was big. But Miami, NC State, not ranked, still made the tournament.
Well, there's no days off when you go and you play in the ACC, especially on the road. You may be a better team than your opponent, but when you get anybody on the road, it's tough.
"15 schools, all on one network, a new place to call home, the ACC Network, coming August 2019. And with you here on the ACC Network Extra, along with Chris Corciani, I'm Andrew Sanders. Can't wait for that ACC Network coming next fall. It'll be here before we know it. The regular season got here before we knew it. Glad to be with you here and glad to be with you all as well watching at home. In that first half, 40-30 NC State leads. We'll start with the Wolfpack first. Chris, what's their key in the second half to come out with a victory tonight?
I think Coach Keats at halftime, was probably pleased with some things, but some of the things he wasn't pleased with was their zone offense. Okay. They've got to be a lot quicker getting into it, more passing, more dribbling. But overall, up 10 at the first half, Coach Keats has got to be pleased for the first night out.
How about defensively for NC State?
Defensively, they've got to contain the dribbler. I think that Mount St. Mary's guards really were able to put the ball on the deck, get by our first line of defense, and that's something that NC State can't have if they're going to have success in the ACC.
And then the visitors from Maryland, Mount St. Mary's hanging in there right now. They're in upset range, if you will. 10 points is doable. What do they need to do here in the second half?
Well, I've been real impressed with Mount St. Mary's, coming into a hostile environment, first game of the season. They haven't backed down at all. Their 2 guards are tough. They can score. Combined for most of Mount St. Mary's points, they just need to play with the same pace, keep pushing the ball, and try to get some easy buckets.
Yeah, we've both been impressed with what we've seen from Dan Engelstad's team in his first season. This is his debut tonight, and he said, very similarly that they want to play fast and they want to play physically, get up and down. But he said, we're going to play hard with effort, blue-collar basketball, and that's been on evidence tonight.
They've done that, and, that's a credit to Coach Engelstad. But, the more that Mount St. Mary's plays together, they're going to learn where their teammates are. It's something that doesn't happen right away. The more you play with the guy, the more you know exactly where he's going to be. And you're going to see that not only from NC State, but as Mount St. Mary's goes on this year.
This is a great test for the Mount starting their season at NC State because they're going to play on the road at a lot of schools that you may be familiar with. They're going to play at Marshall, at Maryland, St. John's, and at Minnesota. So it's a tough schedule, and this is just the first of many for them.
But for Mount St. Mary's, that's what those kids sign up for.
Sure.
When they're being recruited, they're being told, listen, we're going to play a tough schedule, especially early on before conference play.
KJ Scott off the mark. He did not score in the first half and had just 3 points in the exhibition against Hood College. He fouled out, but that's a guy that they need to be a leader this year as the lone upperclassman and a grad student for that matter. Dorn had his shot blocked by Opoku, and then I think, are they going to get Walker here?
Yeah, I think they got Dorn. Yeah, for that. I tell you, he gets up. He's just a quick jumper on that offensive board there, but that's one you got to kick out, reset, try to get a better look.
Just the first foul on Dorn as Daniels loses his footing, almost took the ball away from Scott. Morse dishes inside. Jefferson with the left hand.
What a great look by Morse. Got all the way in the teeth of the defense and just dropped it off for the easy bucket.
Morse had 13 points, 4 assists in their exhibition. And you can tell he's going to be a player immediately. Took a hard screen from Wyatt Walker there, though. Head snapped back. And I guess no one called it out. Bryce, pretty move. Baseline reverse is good.
Well, that was a hesitation. Looked like he was going to dribble back out toward the free throw line. Hesitated. Nice finish with the reverse layup.
Jefferson needs the guard to come get the ball. Gibbs does. Feeds it back to him on the bounce. And this time the southpaw can't score.
Wyatt Walker did a great job. It's one thing to guard your man, but great help defense. Came over. I played with a guy named Brian Howard. Great player, played in the NBA for a few years, but the best teammate because he was so helpful. You get beat, he was always there. And just a wonderful player, but that's what Wyatt did on that defensive end, stepping up, helping out.
Dorn's first free throw, nothing but twine. KJ Scott coming out. Omar Habwe coming in. Torrin Dorn shot over 53% last year for NC State. That mark was good for 5th in the ACC. Normally you would expect that from a back to the basket, maybe 6'10" player, not a wing like Dorn.
I tell you, he's a warrior. Dorn is just a basketball player. You can put him out there, plays all over the court, great athlete. I tell you, his shot doesn't look great, but he makes it. And he hit a number of big shots last year for the Pack.
The alley-oop to Bryce, had to regather himself, and he was fouled on the floor by Habwe. I tell you what, how about the hang time there, though, from Gibbs and the little finger roll on the other side?
Yeah, Gibbs is going right at the NC State defense, not backing down a bit.
It's now a pair of fouls on number 13, Omar Habwe, who made one start last year.
Here you see Mount St. Mary's in that 2-3 zone again.
Did Bryce shuffle the feet? He did.
It's difficult when teams switch from man to zone. It's difficult, especially for a point guard. When a team's playing man-to-man, you get in a rhythm. But on that out-of-bounds underneath, they switched up and went zone and, created a turnover.
That's the 6th turnover forced by the Mount against the Wolfpack. Morse splits the double team and then throws it to Dorn, who lost the handle. Opoku right into the chest of Walker, physically scores it.
Unfortunate there. Dorn with a nice defensive play and got excited. He just wanted to get down the other end of the court so fast he just turned it over.
NC State attacking the middle of that zone from the inside to the outside. And the three's not falling, but Bryce again reverse layup off a turnover. And scores over Opoku.
Boy, Bryce is another guy that's real quick off his feet, going after the offensive rebound and then finishing the shot at the rim.
Bryce now joining Torrin Dorn. He's in the double figures with 10. Boku's not shy. The shot's too strong. Alley-oop to Torin Dorn. What a feed.
Absolutely beautiful. I mean, Torin Dorn was well above the rim there. Markel Johnson gets the ball out, head up, sees his partner, and Dorn way above the rim for the slam dunk.
Torin Dorn for NC State has been a force in tonight's contest, offensively, defensively. He's just a well-rounded player, Chris.
He does a little bit of everything. He's got 15 points. He's got 9 rebounds. So he does a little everything. He stuffs the stat sheet. Here he goes up with the slam. How much fun does that look? I mean, I would love to be able to get up like Torin Dorn. It just makes it look so much fun.
You and me both. Coming out of the timeout, Jalen Gibbs with a strong drive.
I tell you, they're not scared. They're pushing it right down NC State's throat for an easy bucket.
And there's Devin Daniels. Like you said, a little bit unorthodox, almost herky-jerky in his way, and really just throws off the defender.
Yeah, that's his game. You know, he has yet tonight to get comfortable. He's the one guy that really can score. You know, I think as the year goes on, he's going to be the guy that leads them in scoring when they need a big bucket. You know, but he just isn't real comfortable out there tonight, but that's just going to take some time.
Habway gets his own board. New shot clock, but Gibbs has a quick trigger. And he's fired up after he bangs in that three. He's got 17, and it's just an 8-point game.
Coach Engelstad doesn't mind that shot. You know, when the clock resets, a lot of times you want to run clock. But when you can get a good, clean, open three, he wants you to take it.
And his zone for the Mount has really bothered NC State. They need some of those shots to drop or get offensive rebounds like that for Bryce.
Right, they need to just keep working hard. The best way to get a team out of a zone is knock down a couple threes, then they go back man.
Gibbs bailed out there as he dribbled himself into trouble.
And that's one of those fouls where you just don't need to make it. You're in good position, just keep your hands straight up.
Official timeout. 3 fouls on C.J. Bryce as Gibbs will go to the line when we come back. Jalen Gibbs at the free throw line for the Mount as we return to action. Gibbs transferred over from Drake, as I mentioned earlier, so he has some experience, but he played just 10 minutes, averaged just 3 points at Drake. So this is why you transfer, right, is because you hope to seek out an increased role somewhere else, and I think he's found that. He's got 18 points.
Yeah, he's having a big night, and yeah, I mean, transfers have been such an epidemic in college athletics, and you see it a number of different ways. You see players that have been at Mount St. Mary's that have transferred away from them to better, you know, so it's a very difficult situation for a coach. You know, you want your freshmen and sophomores to have success, but then they leave to go to a higher level. So it's been very difficult for a lot of coaches at the mid to lower levels that lose transfers because they want to play better competition to go to bigger programs.
Only 4 to shoot. It's Markel Johnson. He makes the 3. That makes NC State 3 of 13 behind the arc. So that number's not good, but to see that one go in, that might help against that zone.
That's right. Markel needs to look to score, look to shoot more. And, you know, with Braxton Beverly being out, he's their only real pure three-point shooter. You know, that's something that NC State's going to have a concern about all year long is how are they going to knock down the 3 ball.
Daniels comes away and fight for the rebound. Harris, good feed inside.
The best thing about Harris's move there is he got in to the defense, didn't go too far, didn't commit a charge, stopped on a dime and made a great pass.
NC State up 13 now as the Pack's made 5 of its last 7. Gibbs off the wrong foot. Why not? He is feeling it tonight.
I'll tell you, it's great to see Gibbs. He's got a big smile on his face. He's having a great time. Went right at him there with a great move, puts it on the deck. Harris not in terrible position, makes a tough fadeaway shot there.
Sometimes you just got to tip your hat. That's a good bucket.
Yeah, I thought Blake was in good position, and he is going to his left, fades away, for the and one. Just a great move.
By the way, you mentioned, again, the absence of Braxton Beverly, who led the ACC in assist-to-turnover ratio in his freshman season. Important to note, he had off-season hand surgery. Here's another lob from Johnson, and it's broken up by Hobway. Jericho Helms had it bounce 3 times on the rim and didn't drop. And again, the Mount's going to push. The pass at the feet of Opoku, and it's taken away. But Beverly, when Coach Keats was asked about him yesterday at media availability, he said, I don't really have a timetable for it. But then later he went on to say, he's doing better, he's progressing, and we're hopeful maybe 2-3 weeks he'll be back and ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's about the right number. They need him out there. It's a guy that's played a full season, very steady with the basketball, a solid defender, shoots the 3-ball well. He's just a leader that they're going to have with him and Markel on the floor together.
Harris drives baseline, and he was pushed out of bounds.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that type of action where Harris puts it on the deck and penetrates, but looking to pass. You're going to see penetration pass. That's the way that Coach Keats wants them to play because, again, they've got interchangeable type athletes.
That's the 3rd foul on Omar Hobway, and he will exit at this point. By the way, we just showed you a moment ago, if you didn't recognize that young bearded man on the bench, that is indeed Braxton Beverly. That's a new look this year.
Oh, yeah. He's got a lot of growth on that face, but I'm sure that Coach Keats just wants him out there to play and knock down shots and distribute the ball. Doesn't care what he's got.
Martin Polson didn't look for his offense. Instead, he feeds Jefferson. Went with the right hook for the left-handed man. And that's the part of the game that Markel Johnson continues to develop.
Right, that's what I want to see him do. I want to see him more offensive-minded with the shot first. Great passer, but in order for this NC State team to be successful, they need Markel to score. And a lot of times he's just so unselfish, he gives it up. But that's not what's going to make NC State best.
Funderburk called for the foul on Jefferson, because I think he got him on the wrist.
Yeah, here you see Funderburk helping, and he hustles back, but he's got to have someone else come over with rotation. When Funderburk helps, one of his teammates needs to help him.
Got to credit the Mountaineers. Again, they want to play tough, blue collar, be aggressive. They've gotten to the free throw line tonight. As Jefferson misses the first, Helms and Daniels come out for NC State. There's a look at the freshman.
They've got a lot of young players, new players, and, that's tough on a coach. He's going to learn a lot about his team tonight and over the first few weeks of trying to mesh them all together.
I think he knows one thing already. His backcourt is completely unfazed.
No, they're tough, strong. With a good backcourt, you have an opportunity to win a lot of games.
The offensive rebound by Eric Lockett leads to a foul, and that'll take us to the under 12 timeout. NC State trying to stretch out that lead. They've got it by 13. It's a Thursday night college football showcase as the 21st ranked NC State Wolfpack play host to the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Action starts at 7:30 from Carter Finley Stadium on ESPN and the Watch ESPN app. Those of you enjoying this one know all about the Watch ESPN app.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got to have it all the time so you can watch all the games.
You got a smart TV at this point. Put it right up there on the big screen. second free throw for Lockett. And NC State coming out with a full court pressure here. Morse splits through a couple. Boy, a ton of right shirts coming over to Morse, and that leaves the man who's been on fire wide open, but Gibbs doesn't hit it. Blake Harris bringing the ball up the court, so now Markel Johnson in more of an off-ball position.
Nice move. Just a good finish at the rim, very athletic, quick off the dribble, and the nice finish with the reverse layup.
Ball almost slapped away from Chong Kui. Morse gets tackled by Blake Harris.
You know, I think Coach Keats likes that pace. That's what he wants to do. He just doesn't want to foul there. You know, you want to speed them up and then play under control.
Blake Harris playing at Word of God High School here in Raleigh. Famous for its basketball. C.J. Leslie, who played here at NC State. John Wall.
They've had a number of great players. Des Wells that played at Maryland.
Yeah.
Just a factory when it comes to basketball. And I've watched many of their teams play, especially in the Holiday Classic that's held at Broughton High School. Word of God generally participates, and it's fun watching all those great players.
Markel Johnson has indeed been working on that three-point shot.
No question, and again, more than capable of making it, just needs to shoot it with a lot of confidence. And here comes the pack right at him again.
It's a 3-on-1, and Bryce maybe one too many dribbles, gives it up to Harris late, and they're trying to make the best out of the transition and eventually do score.
You're exactly right. He needed to give that up just one dribble too much and got into trouble, but the pack ends up scoring on the offensive rebound by Funderburk.
When Funderburk forced Opoku into a much tougher shot than his initial position had. Bryce, Euro step, count it.
That's what we want to see, is scoring bunches.
NC State on a big run here. Largest lead at 69-46. And as quickly as they can turn defense into offense, when some of those three balls are going down, like Markel Johnson here, you can see 13-0 run in just over 2 minutes, Chris.
Yeah, Markel hits the three. That's really helpful in the half court, but boy, they want to get out and run. Here in the last 2 or 3 minutes, you see the NC State pace pick up, and they're getting out, scoring some easy buckets.
For a team that scored 111 points in its exhibition, the points were hard to come by early on, and all of a sudden it's been a flood of points here.
You know, what ends up happening a lot of times is you end up wearing down a team. You know, NC State's playing 10 guys, throwing out a lot of fresh bodies, and Mount St. Mary's, you know, they've got guys that are logging more minutes, and NC State with this press has been very effective here in the second half.
Hobway in the corner, short. Good pass, Gibbs. You know he's going to make that.
Well, I tell you, Gibbs is a big-time player. You know, he's going to be scoring in bunches from Mount St. Mary's. Can shoot it, can rebound, and really good around the basket with both hands.
He now has 24 points. I told you a lot of career highs were going to be set tonight. That one might stand for a little while for Gibbs. He's still got 9 minutes left. Harris with the triple.
The Pack certainly shooting the ball much better from the perimeter here in the second half.
Do you see them getting better looks? Do you think that's just a confidence thing? Law of averages? What do you attribute that to?
You know, I think they're getting better looks. They're sharing the ball well here in the second half. But, you know, it's that first half jitters. You know, it's tough. They've been waiting to get out there and play, and second half they're scoring at a better pace.
Lockett misses the bunny. It's loose in the paint and Opoku reaches down to grab it.
Unfortunate. Great pass by C.J. Bryce, but Lockett couldn't finish.
Yeah, if you're Gibbs, you got to take a heat check. And that ball off the rim, not touched by anyone. And Moore signaling to Gibbs, hey, just stay calm, stay collected, still time.
He hasn't taken many bad shots, but that one probably was the one that Coach Engelstadt didn't want him to take. But you know what? When you get hot like that, you go, hey, this is my night. I got to let it go.
Yeah, basket looks a little bigger, but Mount St. Mary's has made just one of their last 7 in the midst of this massive Wolfpack run. 16-2. Walker uses his body and the pass fake well. He'll go to the line. Are they going to get Opoku here? No, pardon me. Jefferson picks up his third.
Tell you, when Walker catches the ball, a lot of times the defense doesn't even really guard him. He has to take advantage of that like he did just there, putting it on the floor, trying the reverse layup, but got bumped.
I don't know if he's the guy that teams really want to sleep on. When he was at Samford, he made the SoCon freshman team. He was third team as a sophomore in 2017. And had a good shot. A lot of people thought he might end up making first team his junior season, but he got injured just 2 games into the year. I mentioned this earlier, but just to reiterate, he has 2 years here to play in Raleigh, even as a graduate student, because he got a medical red shirt last year.
Well, he's the kind of guy that every coach wants on his team. You know, sacrifices his body, does all the little things. There he gets his hand on the offensive board, and just a great effort play. We're talking about him, just a fighter, very tough inside.
And for a team that doesn't have a ton of size, NC State, he led the SoCon in rebounding as a sophomore, just a hair under 10 per game. So they're going to need a rebounder, and he might be the one to fill that role.
It was a big-time late signing that Coach Keats had, but, you know, he fills a void that we need inside, and he should have a nice year.
Bryce, 18-footer.
You can just see, Andrew, here in the second half, everybody's calming down. C.J. Bryce having a real nice second half, along with Blake Harris.
More swatted, but C.J. Bryce got more than just the basketball. And that'll take us to another timeout. Wyatt Walker, C.J. Bryce working hard on the offensive glass for NC State. Back here in Raleigh, this was a 10-point game at halftime, and it has ballooned into nearly a 30-point lead for the Wolfpack. One reason why the three-point shooting has changed here in the second half. NC State has actually made 4 of its last 6 here, Chris. And another stat, you know, we always pay attention to the boards. NC State out-rebounding them out 21-8 here in the second half.
And they're rebounding by committee. You know, it's not just one guy in there. They've got their guards going, and they got a number of guys with 4 or more rebounds. But that's what they have to do when you don't have great size. Everybody has to contribute, and that's what we're seeing here, especially here in the second half.
Vado Morse makes both free throws.
The other thing, Andrew, you know, we knocked down 4 of our last 6. You see Mount St. Mary's out of the zone and now playing man-to-man.
Seeing his first minutes here for the Mount. Matt Becht getting a couple of minutes. Daniel scores, and that's good to see for Mount St. Mary's because he had been injured, had a slight knee injury. They were hoping to get him some minutes tonight, so he is in the ballgame.
Well, I'll tell you, that Devin Daniels move right there, very quick first step, and then the nice finish.
Torin Dorn collected the steal, couldn't lead Markel Johnson. And the pack will go in, half-court offense. Looking for his offense more. Coach Keats has been encouraging him to do that. Many Wolfpack fans will remember they had 3 top 10 wins last year. The last one in Chapel Hill against North Carolina. The last few minutes of that game and in overtime, Markel Johnson pretty much took over with his offense. He's shown some flashes that he can do it.
You know, there was games last year that you just saw him mature and grow up, and he just had a great year last year, and he's off to a good start here, but the Pack here in the second half, they're getting out and running. They're making the extra pass, and they've really looked good in the second half.
Vado Morse now with 16 points, undersized, but overwhelming in talent here.
Yeah, that back court has really come to play, and they've created some problems for the Pack.
Rain in threes in the second half.
You know, it starts with all the good ball movement. The ball goes into Walker, outside. You get good ball movement for a shooter. That's what it makes it a lot easier in rhythm.
Torin Dorn now with 23 points and 9 rebounds.
Well, you know, that's what you want from your senior leader. And early in the year, little jitters, but not so for Torin.
Miscommunication as Daniels made a good cut to the basket.
I think Daniels wanted Markel to throw it up to the rim, and he didn't. But again, you know, first game playing together, they're going to learn a lot more about one another. You know, it's real important for NC State to have a lot of these, you know, early non-season, non-conference games to really gel. You know, a lot of teams, you know, have got returning players. NC State with only 2 returning players on the floor now. These early games are going to give them time and also give Coach Keats an idea of what he's got out there.
Becht is short on the 3. I mentioned earlier, Becht is now seeing his first minutes. Ian Steer, number 21, is in there for NC State. Big freshman. Gets the pass here, and he shows you what he can do. His first touch as an NC State player is a dunk.
I tell you what, he has a great body. He's strong, very good athletically. You know, he's got a ways to go in order to really help this team and get minutes. But I'll tell you the one thing he's got a big, strong body. And he's only going to become a better player as the year goes on. He just needs to keep working.
Steer, a 4-star recruit, but played smaller school, high school basketball. It's always a big transition from high school basketball to college. As Dorn's got the touch now from the bonus sphere. But especially when you play at a smaller level school, it becomes even a bigger jump sometimes.
Right. No, that's true. You know, the game's faster, playing against more good players. But I really like what NC State's doing on their half-court offense. They're keeping that ball moving. You know, it's like a hot potato. Inside, outside, hit the shooter.
And Becht trying to slow down Dorn. That'll take us to our final media timeout, 92-55. It has been a blizzard of threes from NC State here in the second half. The 17th ranked Wolfpack women's basketball team opens up their season tomorrow night in Reynolds Coliseum against the Belmont Bruins. First tip is 7 o'clock right here on the ACC Network Extra. NC State ranked, but Belmont has won 46 straight games in the Ohio Valley Conference. 46 back-to-back undefeated.
That's a big number. I'll tell you, Coach Wes Moore's doing a great job with the women's program. You know, bringing in good recruits, building a real strong foundation.
Torin Dorn going to get a nice hand from the crowd.
That's a good way to start your senior campaign. 20-plus points and 9 boards.
Dorn, a big reason why NC State has gone on this massive run and now stands a 41-12 run. When we took that media timeout, 14:56 left in the second half.
Well, I certainly
think
think
an 8-point game.
Yeah, Dorn had a real big second half, but I really think the combination between Markel, Johnson, and Torin Dorn, the only 2 guys that have seen any time in an NC State uniform, I think in the second half they really picked it up, and it is shown with the score.
Only 4 to shoot. Helms will pull the trigger from 3. He's 6'9". He's got range.
He can do a lot of things, and it's good to see him hit a shot there and get going. He's one of the guys that NC State and Coach Keats really thinks is going to be in that 8, 9, 10 rotation.
Let me take that back. He's 6'7". I don't want to give him too much credit.
He might grow. You never know.
8 to shoot. And it turns into a live ball turnover. Lockett, underhand pass to Helms. Thunderbird comes in with the thunder.
I tell you, a great look by Lockett, and Helms wasn't able to finish, but the big guy, Thunderbird, certainly flushed it down. Just seems to me that Thunderbird's always around the ball. You know, whether it's a defensive rebound, whether it's a putback dunk, he just seems to find the ball.
Damian Chung-Kui almost got the roll.
Hey, Ian Steer doing a nice job on the defensive glass. Went up strong for the last 2 defensive rebounds.
NC State on the precipice of cracking 100 points. Big reason why. Again, you say, well, we'll get a look first at this finish from Thunderbird.
He's quick off his feet.
By the way, Torin Dorn, new career high for him tonight, 28 points.
I'll tell you, I think a lot of them came in the second half as well, but it's good to see Torin knocking down that the three-pointers. That opens up a lot of his game. You know, when he's hitting shots, he can really beat you off the dribble.
There's the century mark for the Wolfpack. So they put up 60 points just in this second half.
So what is this, free chicken? What's 100 get us now?
That's a good question, but the students here seem to be pretty excited about hitting the 100.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with free chicken somewhere. I need to find out because I've got my ticket too here.
As a college student, always got to cheer free food. 1 minute to go here. Not sure if that was a shot or not. Brandon Leftwich threw it up, and now Ace Stallings will go to the line. Okay, and this is, I think, where the promotion comes in. A couple of missed free throws.
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Maybe just general enthusiasm for 100 points, but this is where the chicken comes in. All right, one more miss.
He's got a chance to make a lot of college students happy tomorrow.
And this place will explode. One of the loudest cheers of the night. Free chicken for the students. Blake Harris to the line.
It's kind of like the loved what Coach Keats did last year. Every big road win, they went out and found an ice cream shop.
Right.
And even the big wins on the road, they came back. And guess who was scooping the ice cream? Coach Kevin Keats.
How about that?
It was a little tradition they had last year. And I know NC State Wolfpack fans hope that he's scooping a lot of ice cream again this year.
Yeah. DeMonte Moore seeing some action here. The sophomore guard from Baltimore turns it over.
I tell you, give Mount St. Mary's a lot of credit. They hung in there, played a very good first half. Just second half the game kind of got away from them a little bit, but they didn't back down a bit and went punch for most of the first half.
Again, 15 minutes left in this game. It was an 8-point game as Steer shows a nice low post move.
I tell you, Steer's had limited minutes, but while he's been in there, he's been very effective.
So I think there's a lot of positives that Mount St. Mary's can take out of this ball game, and certainly a lot to learn from and improve, as in any season opener for any team. Got to go to the film and see what needs to change. As Steer boards it up, they'll dribble it out, and that'll do it here. Mount St. Mary's next in action Friday at Hofstra. NC State will host Maryland Eastern Shore Saturday. As the two coaches shake hands, NC State wins at 105-55. as they were able to turn it on in the second half, Chris.
They turned the heat up the second half, and shots started falling, but, you know, that was tale of two halves. First half, NC State struggled a little bit, maybe some nerves. Second half, totally different team, played extremely well in the second half.
So that will do it for our broadcast here in the PNC Arena. The 2018-2019 season is underway, and NC State is 1-0 after a 50-point win over the Mount. Torin Dorn scored a career-high 28 points as the Wolfpack cruised in the second half. For my partner, Chris Corciani, our fantastic crew here in Raleigh, my name is Andrew Sanders saying good night. This has been a presentation of ESPN.
What's up, Clyde? Are we done, or